Welcome to Order Militarist Radio TV, and we're lifelong Catholics, and what we do is all for free, and for our love of Jesus Christ, and for our Holy Mother, the Church. And we'll defend Holy Mother, the Church. Well, last night it got interesting at the Vatican. A car rammed the gate of St. Anne, and well, we're going to talk about it. Welcome, Brother Alexis.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Order Militaris Radio TV. And as our viewers might know, we are a security initiative, Order Militaris Catholicus, for the defense of Catholics. So this is one of the first occasions in modern times that anyone has tried to forcibly enter the Vatican, and gunfire was used in an attempt to stop them. So this is something we got to talk about. And first we'll cover the news. So it seems that all the reports in English or in Italian, it's the same exact text. So it looks like something the Vatican released, and maybe you can read that, AJ.
Yeah, so let me pull it up here. Find the right one here. Yeah, that one. This is from New York Post, released yesterday at 8:30 p.m. Story by David Proper, and MSN picked it up for just so they could share it this morning. A crazy driver barreled past the Vatican gate before armed guards opened fire and arrested the man once he reached the palace courtyard, the Holy See said. The driver sped into the area on Thursday evening, and Vatican gendarmes fired one shot at the car's front tires, but the Italian news says the rear tires. It made its way to the Pope St. Damaso's courtyard of the Apostolic Palace before the driver fled from the car and was quickly taken into custody.
Yeah, so this raises a lot of questions. The Italian news this morning admits that the driver appears to have been an Italian citizen, I guess because of the fact he could speak Italian. All the reports say he was immediately recognized to be in a highly altered mental state, and he was put under medical observation and then put in a detention cell of the Vatican Police. The gate of St. Anne, if you're looking at St. Peter's, if you see the picture of St. Peter's that you normally see, it's on this side of the picture you're looking at. If you're, well, maybe it's that side, but it's going to be your right-hand side as you're facing the Vatican. And past the colonnade, the Bernini colonnade, over under the small little gate, it's the entrance on that side if you want to go to daily mass of the Chapel of St. Anne. That's why it's called the Gate of St. Anne. And the Swiss Guard have a security checkpoint there, and so do the Gendarmerie, which is the Vatican Police. And it's a big metal gate. It's opened around 7 in the morning, and it closes around 9 at night. And there's no, and you know, you'd have to, I don't think an armored vehicle could get through the gate when it's closed, but it's normally open at least halfway or all the way during the day. It's all the way. You come in and out. You can go to the Chapel of St. Anne with really out any security check whatsoever. But to go further in, you're stopped. You must show your authorization, your day pass or your worker's permit. And that's the gate where all the workers of the Vatican enter in and out. And there's really no way to run that gate because walls are here and the gate is there. And there's a road that goes parallel to the walls. And then there's just one straight road that maybe goes 3 blocks that comes right in the gate. So if he tried to run the gate, he came down that street. And it's a one-way street. So first he attempted to enter and he didn't have the authorization. So he turned his car around, went down that street against the traffic. Well, there's no traffic at that hour. I'm still surprised that there was no traffic at that hour. There's usually some car on that street. Then he turned around and then high speed tried to run through. So various things could have been done and were not done. And this is what we're going to discuss. I have gone on record before saying that Vatican Security is probably the worst in the world. And, you know, if I was in charge of that, if I was in charge of this thing to the Holy Fathers, I can't in conscience guarantee you with the current state of affairs because it's a joke. Okay. That gate has at least 4 armed Italian special forces, usually Bersaglieri or other special forces. They're armed with pistols and machine guns. And they're stationed there all day. Occasionally they'll take a smoke. They seem to be pretty casual about it, although they're often on watch, you know, looking at strange persons. I'm pretty sure they're there even in the evening and all night long, although there might be a reduced guard at night. They don't seem to have used their guns, but I guess you don't shoot at people leaving Italy. It's the Vatican's duty to stop people entering. So they could have closed the gate. Maybe they didn't have the time. It is a heavy gate. But when they saw the guy down the street turn around and start heading him at high speed, I think they had enough time to close that gate. So they were sleeping on their watch. Okay. And at least they closed half of it, you know, or thrown some kind of barricade up. They don't seem to have done anything like that. Then the Swiss Guard are there, and the Swiss Guard are armed, but I don't know if that gate, they actually, I think they carry their Uzi underneath their official clothing, and at least having the office guns. But it was an inspector of the Vatican Police who fired his gun. So that's already a bad sign because the Swiss Guard, I mean, you know, they're the ones I think at the first out of the gate, but maybe that's not their authority. Both should be authorized to use armed force. And he used a pistol to attempt to stop this car. So AJ, you're a guns expert. Do you think that was a good choice?
Depending on what caliber. If it was a higher, bigger caliber, then yeah. But yes, you would have had to aim it first.
Yeah, it was like, I think only like 9mm. They're not big caliber guns. And he fired at the rear tire and only hit the left fender. So the first thing we can see is these guys, no one is trained to stop a car entering. And that is really the lowest level of security breach that would be, you know, considered serious. Obviously, if someone tries to walk in, you grab them, of course. But God forbid any kind of like terrorists come by and do something worse. It doesn't seem that they're even prepared, you know. As soon as the guy tried to gain entrance at that hour without proper documentation, they shouldn't have simply refused him. They should have gathered some information before they refused him to see if he would be a potential threat. And evidently that was not done. Okay, if he was an altered mental state, if he was like absolutely intent upon entering, you know. And when a person is not in a car moving at 80 miles an hour, but is parked at a checkpoint, it's a lot easier to ask information and get it without any threats. It doesn't appear the guy was armed. Okay. So that was a big fail. Firing at the tire with your pistol, is that a good target, AJ?
No.
Yeah. Now, of course, if he fired at the windshield and attempt to injure the individual or disarm him or even kill him, that would probably be a publicity nightmare for Vatican spokesmen because of what? What's the Vatican policy on immigration?
They love illegal immigration.
In their country or other people's countries?
Other people's countries.
Yeah, that's only under Pope Francis. Okay, the previous pope, since that Pope Benedict said that people should have the things they need in their country so they're not and illegal immigration. The other thing it appears they didn't have is anything to stop the car. You know, what are those sticks that the state troopers in the United States throw down? They go out on the road and the car drives over. They puncture the tires.
Yeah. They wouldn't have the rumble strips and all those things that burst the tires and.
Yeah. The other thing it seems the Vatican doesn't have, and this is kind of amazing because you see it all around Rome. Rome, in the city, to block off certain streets. Italy has concrete pillars that rise out of the ground on hydraulic lifts to block a street off that a truck couldn't even get through. So some of those streets are blocked at nighttime. There is a thing that lies flat, and you could, as a press a button, it pops up, and any tire hitting that would just be torn right off the wheels of the car, and the car would stop moving. Evidently, the Vatican either doesn't have one of those in place, and last time I was there was, I have to admit, was 10 years ago. That looked closely. I'm not in the habit of casing the Vatican to check its security, but if Vatican had that, they could press the button if someone, maybe they did have it but didn't think of pressing it, and that would have slowly stopped the car. So fortunately, the driver of the car didn't want to run anyone over. Did stop on his own in the courtyard of the Apostolic Palace, which is known as the courtyard of Saint Damasus, Pope Damasus, and willingly got out of the car. And he wasn't armed, he wasn't carrying bombs or anything. Probably just wanted to speak with Pope Francis, Probably had some hope that Pope Francis would solve his problems, And but now the Vatican has a public relations nightmare because of what, AJ?
Their security failed.
Yeah, that's the first point. Their security failed, and that is very bad because if you fail to stop a nutcase entering your country, like 10,000 nuts around the world who aren't crazy but know how to make bombs and use guns are going to say, look, it's easy to get in. So Vatican security has been terribly compromised. The reputation of Vatican security has been totally destroyed. Even one of the Italian journals that covers defense news for Italy, in publishing this story put in boldface that the police inspector failed to stop the car with a pistol, which is the Italian way of just bursting out laughing and saying the guy's totally incompetent. I'm not saying you're totally incompetent. Please don't take offense at my words. But I think I get the impression you've never been trained how to stop a car with a pistol. And I think it's good that you took action. That's good. There's like 8 other guys there, Swiss Guard and Vatican Police at that hour. None of them took action. That's very bad. Very bad. If I was the head of security in the Vatican, I would be reprimanding 7 of you if there was 8 of you there. And the 8th guy would say, it's my fault. I didn't give you training to stop a car. Okay. But the other publicity nightmare is the Vatican security fired a gun to prevent an illegal alien from entering their country. And Pope Francis just goes on and on and on and on how you should welcome foreigners and welcome them to your home and let them into your country and stuff like that. We should care, everyone's brothers, and we should care for everyone, but his own police force fired at a mentally unstable person. Now, I don't think what the police did was wrong. Do you think they should have used more force, AJ? What would you have told them to do?
Well, the guy was using a weapon, his car, at high speeds, going right at him.
That is a weapon.
I would have said, why is that car not full of bullet holes?
Yeah. So in most modern Western codes of security, running a gate at high speed is considered intent to commit homicide at the very least. And it's considered be using a weapon, and it justifies the use of deadly force by security forces. Now, I'm not saying that we Catholics should accept that classification, but I say that I get the impression that the Gendarmerie and the Swiss Guard don't have good training about what to do in a case like this. There seems to have been like one of 8 or one of a few that took any action. They didn't take any action to stop him. Evidently, there was enough of them on hand to surround the guy when get out of the car and arrest him. And fortunately, he was mentally unstable, so it really was. But if you can imagine if this guy was a mentally unstable, someone who had gone through basic combat training, like the guy, like it is alleged, the guy at the Allentown Mall in Texas last week, armed with an Uzi, 8 rounds of guns. How many Swiss Guard and Vatican Police would fall before they took the guy out? How many other Vatican officials, monsignors, priests, and nuns who happened to be walking around would have been seriously injured?
Yeah.
So this is an absolute disaster, and one of many organizational disasters since Bergoglio took over the government of the Vatican. Since Pope Benedict went into retirement. And, all the way from stealing 30 million euro from the personal bank account of Pope Francis, one of his friends stole 30 million euro from his own bank account. So it's utterly chaos. It is said that Pope Francis was chosen by the cardinals because he could organize the Vatican better, but it's pretty clear that he is not an effective manager, in the very least. We won't even talk about doctrine and morals, things like that. Any recommendations for Vatican Security, AJ, if you were asked some basic things? Let's say Pope Francis would ask you, what needs to be done to prevent this in the future? Yeah,
so I would definitely install those cement reinforced barriers that come up, when by press of a button. The things that pop up and nab the tires. But then I would retrain those guards off property so no one would get hurt. Teach them how to shoot at moving targets.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The Vatican budget is very restricted, but since St. Anne is the main gate, it perhaps would pay to have like 8 guys on rotation, secret agents, undercover, in Italian territory, outside Vatican territory, at the cafes along that street and stuff like that. So if anything happens, they could act or at least gather information and say, hey, the guy is coming at you at 80 miles an hour, you better do something. I know that would cost money. It would probably cost, a couple $100,000, and they're very spendthrift at the Vatican, at least in some ways. But, every country has spies in every other country. The Vatican has some spies too, for security. And the Swiss Guard must really feel embarrassed because the Apostolic Palace is where the Pope normally lives. They actually let someone get that far. That's that's the first time that's happened in like maybe 150 years. I have to go back to Risorgimento, perhaps. Not good. It's just not good. It's very embarrassing. And we're not talking about it because we want to embarrass the Vatican or the Swiss Guard or the Gendarmerie of the Vatican, but this is an important issue. And I'm sure all Catholics, whatever they think, agree that the Vatican should be protected. It's a cultural monument of world class, there are things in it, not only persons, but also things of great value and importance to the world. The gate of St. Anne needs a little bit better security, but security is lax at the Vatican, and even at the Italian forces outside who block the main streets. This Via Conciliazione is blocked almost the entire way under Pope Francis. It wasn't that way under Pope Benedict. So you can't even drive up one of the most beautiful streets in Rome because they're afraid some nut with a, truck full of bombs will just drive straight up to St. Peter's and blow it up. But, they could do that at any other gate that's wide open, and this gate of St. Anne is the most vulnerable because it's usually always open. There's other gates, I won't mention them for the sake of security, in case some terrorist is listening to our program. And if you are thinking of that, may God strike you down, okay? But this is a sign there needs to be reform, and hope this wakes up the cardinals to think, maybe the next guy should be a military veteran, someone who understands these things, and maybe a financial expert, maybe with a degree in theology. These things are important. Any final words, AJ?
Yeah. You guys, the Swiss Guard and Gendarmerie, you guys got lucky last night. You got to reinforce your training. Make sure every target, everything is a hard target. Don't let it happen again.
Mm-hmm. Yes. One final comment I'll make is that this kind of an attack with a car moving fast can really only be done at 8 at night, because it's the only time you'll find the streets mostly empty. There's so many people on all the streets and so much traffic on all the streets at every other hour, you could never achieve this. So at that hour, you should be even more alert to this kind of attack, because not every kind of attack can be formed at every hour of the day. There's certain hours of the day where certain parts of the Vatican City are going to be vulnerable to certain kinds of attacks and not others. So this shows that there has been really no comprehensive tactical analysis of security threats at the Vatican by hour of the day and geographic location too. Very amateurish, but probably because they don't have military advisors. Maybe Pope Francis should get a general who's an expert military advisor from some nation of the world to go over and walk the walls and get a plan for them, and do it a bit more seriously. And finally, I want to say the Swiss Guard should get a dryer so they're not forced to hang their clothes from the ceiling of the room of their laundry so that everyone can see them who walks by. I just wanted to say that because I'm totally in favor of the Swiss Guard, and I think that is horrendous.
Yep. Next week, we'll be doing our first part of World War II with MacArthur, so stay tuned for that. And this is Order Military Shady TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.